So a couple of years back, I stumbled across a theory that states that human civilization as we know it goes back beyond anything that we ever thought possible. The leading archaeologist behind this theory is called Robert M. Schoch, and Robert M. Schoch first came up with this theory when a friend of his asked him to examine the Sphinx in Egypt and the type of erosion parts of that Sphinx had. He found that the erosion in the Sphinx was caused by rain, not by sand and wind, as most Egyptologists and archaeologists at the time thought. But according to modern geology, Egypt has had 1 inch of rain since the beginning of the ancient Egyptian civilization. So how was this possible? The only way that this was possible is that the Sphinx was built about 5,000 years before the Egyptians ever got there. Why 10,000 years ago? Well, 10,000 years ago, the planet experienced massive change in climate due to solar emissions that caused the rapid melting of the last ice age. Now, there are other structures in the world that support his theory, primarily Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which is a massive temple with 200 pillars and 20 perfect circles that was buried on purpose, that was built 12,000 years ago. That's when modern archaeology tells us we learned to farm. Now, this theory isn't accepted by the wide scientific community. In fact, Schoch has been laughed at a lot because it doesn't help that he also believes in parapsychology and telekinetic humans. Still a cool theory though. Schoch uses his theory also to justify why so many cultures around the world share this great flood myth. And what kind of goes with this theory are all these missing ancient cities that have never been found, like Atlantis and Dorado, the lost line of Magallanes, and the Baraka in India, which were all sunk, along with Shambhala and, you guessed it, the Lost City of Sea. So when I heard about this movie, I was like, vindication! So I was reasonably excited about it. And then I found out that Tom Holland was in it. So this movie was like made for me. But when I heard about it, the Lost City of Sea, I heard about that city when I was researching all of this theory a couple of years back. And I heard about Percy Fawcett, and I read the whole thing about how Percy Fawcett was lost during his expeditions to find the Lost City of Sea in the Amazon. So I was like, how are they gonna do this movie? I hope it doesn't end like with him staring into something that seems like it's the city and he just inhales and then it cuts to black, because I hate those endings. We'll get to that. But this movie is star-studded. It stars Charlie Hunnam, Tom Holland, and Robert Pattinson. Funnily enough, I found it while I was researching for my last video because I just kind of wanted to see what Robert Pattinson had been doing since Twilight, and congratulations to him, he's pretty good in this movie. So I'm slightly less worried about Batman now. So this movie, as I said before, follows Percy Fawcett, the explorer that got lost, searching the Lost City of Sea, played by Charlie Hunnam. And he is very good in this movie. He starts out as an officer in the British Army that is not allowed to move up in the world because he has something with his family name, and they never explain it in the movie. They just say that he can't move up because of his name, which I'm guessing his father did something bad. They never explain it. He gets the opportunity to go to Bolivia with the British Army to try to map out this river that leads up into the Amazon jungle, and he's trying to find basically where this river ends, and gets his posse, and then they go on the adventure. They also pick up a Native American along the way that acts as their guide on this whole adventure, and from this guy is where Charlie Hunnam first hears about these lost cities. They do a very good job at showing the darker sides of the adventure in this movie, I gotta say. Those first scenes in the jungle had to be one of the most tense scenes in the movie, and I was thoroughly entertained. They truly do see how these white British men are just out of their league. I also gotta give props to the acting. Everybody in this movie is really, really good. Again, props to Robert Pattinson, props to Charlie Hunnam, props to Charlie Hunnam's wife. I wish I knew her name, but she is really good in this movie. They also introduce the family dynamic between Percy Fawcett, his wife, and his sons, how he has to go on for years without seeing his children, and how this causes strives in the family, and they did that pretty well, and it acts as the heart of the film, and I really enjoyed it. It was really well done. When Charlie Hunnam finally reaches his destination after one of his crewmen falls in the river and gets eaten by piranhas, that happened. He finds pottery in the jungle. It is also said that he finds a few sculptures in the jungle, and that he goes back to England, and he is ready to tell the world that he believes that there is an ancient civilization hidden somewhere in the Amazon, and they have to go and find it. So I have to say that this movie is beautiful. The visuals in this movie are truly amazing, and they do serve in capturing how mysterious and beautiful the Amazon jungle is. This movie also does a very good job in showing you both sides of the story. The side of Percy Fawcett, who truly deeply believes in this city, and then the side of everybody else who believes that this is a ridiculous adventure, that he's making all this up. They also make Percy Fawcett a very likable protagonist, because he acts as sort of like this figure against the bigotry of the time. There's a scene where he's standing and he's given a speech to the Royal Geographic Society, or whatever it's called, and he's saying how for years the Englishmen have thought themselves superior when they may be talking about a civilization that predates our own.
One that may well predate our own!
I also love old British accents. They're great. So it's after he gives this after the first expedition, that my biggest problem with this movie starts, and it's that it starts to slow down. When Percy Fawcett is in England is when this movie becomes boring, and I don't think that that's really good for a movie about adventure, for your audience to be bored. This movie also takes us in a journey of his life. I believe 20 years go by between the first expedition and his last expedition. In his second expedition, they get joined by James Murray, who is pretty much the biggest antagonist in this film. He's a very unlikable character that just can't handle the jungle, is closed off to other cultures, and just pushes back, and the movie blames him for having ruined the second expedition, and he comes back a failure, and then World War I starts. So this movie jumps around a lot, but I think that helps it a bit with the whole pacing issue. We also get this beautiful World War I. I know it's weird to say beautiful, but it's beautifully grotesque. After World War I, his son decides to forgive him for being an absentee father. He convinces him that he should go on his next adventure with him, and that they should try one last time to find the lost city of C. And that is when Fawcett and his son both got lost. And remember that thing I said at the beginning about how I didn't want the movie to have an ambiguous ending? Well, it has an ending, and the ending is weird. I thought that, again, they were gonna do that thing where he just kind of stares at something and then they cut to black. But no, it is implied that they were eaten by a cannibal tribe. There are cannibalistic tribes in the Amazon. I've searched and I've researched that, but I don't know how well that I mean, kind of goes against the whole message of the film about how we should be open to other cultures and about how we should look beyond our own bigotry to see the achievements others have made and what we can learn from them. I just find it a very weird decision for the filmmakers to be like, okay, and then we ended with a cannibal tribe. What? But oh well. But right before Tom Holland and his father are taken away, they have this really sweet moment together about how he tells him that yes, we are going to die, but we have made a journey many men don't even imagine. And just, man, the dialogue and the acting in this film are great. It's a very good film. I really enjoyed it. It's nice to see a film that focuses in another part of the world that is never really touched on in mainstream Hollywood films. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the film. Pretty good. Check it out. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe. I hope I make more of these. I'm enjoying them so far, so yes. The Lost City of Z gets pretty good out of alright. I gotta say that the visuals and also I have